I'd like to begin by actually asking you all to do something. I'd like you to take a moment and think of the place where you think biodiversity conservation happens, meaning where you think of people protecting plants and animals. Go ahead, you can take a moment and think about it, and you can close your eyes if you need to. Let's envision this place. Now, I suspect, and you can show me with nods, but this place that you're picturing is probably a beautiful, faraway land. Maybe a rainforest in Costa Rica, or a grassland in Africa, or maybe the tundra in the Arctic. And that's great. That's great. It's not too different from the place I'm picturing when I think of this. The place that I picture is one where, and I'll describe it to you, there's a dense tree canopy. And in that tree canopy of fruiting trees, there are small little jewel-like birds jumping back and forth between the branches. And underneath this tree canopy in this forest, the vegetation is so thick you can't see the ground, and it is just buzzing with life. And underneath those plants, you can hear crickets singing all day long. And every now and then, one of those jewel-like birds drops down and grabs one of the insects as a snack. Not too different from the place you were picturing, right? This is it. This is the habitat I was envisioning. Now, the way that the place I'm picturing differs from probably the place that most of you are thinking about is that this isn't a faraway land. This is just a few blocks from here in Manhattan, New York City, and it's on top of a building. This is the Javits Center. This is a large convention center in New York City that has been planted with a green roof and is supporting incredible biodiversity. And this scene that's playing out that I just described is happening right now. And it's not unique. It's not just happening on the Javits Center. This is happening in green roofs or small parks or community gardens across New York City and across all cities. This is something that is important because as cities as we know them are growing. For the first time in human history, in 2012, over half of the human population lived in cities. That means cities are getting a larger population, their footprints are growing, and we're having more cities. At the same time that cities are growing, we're experiencing an incredible biodiversity crisis. What this means is that we are losing the plants and animals of this planet at an incredibly alarming rate. And that's not good. That's horrible in its own right because of the loss of biodiversity. But it's also not good for us because biodiversity protects us as humans. Biodiversity it's the reason we have food and crops. It's the thing that helps us to fight climate change by capturing carbon. It protects us against storm surges or extreme weather events. It's even responsible for some of our medicines. Certain blood pressure medicines and chemotherapies are derived directly from plants and animals. And this biodiversity loss, it's not good. But cities are the key. Cities are critical to global biodiversity conservation. And if we're going to successfully protect this planet and nature on this planet and ourselves, we need to start thinking differently about cities. I'd like you to picture the nation's largest metropolis, New York City. New York City has the nation's largest human population. And this is something that is not what people picture when they're thinking of conservation. New York City has the largest human population and is covered by skyscrapers and roads and bustling city streets. And although it is what we envision is different than this, it is not unique. Cities are teeming with biodiversity. Cities across the world, including New York City, have formed where biodiversity hotspots exist. The same resources that draw humans to a land are the same resources that increase biodiversity. Now, I recognize that this is not something that people expect. Because, I'm a conservation scientist working in New York City to conserve birds. And the most common response that I get to telling people my job is, wow, what does that mean? And I get it. Because when I was young, when I was growing up, I always wanted to be in conservation. And I never pictured working in New York City, never pictured working in a place like this. But this disconnect happens because conservation is often thought of as something that happens in faraway lands. Conservation has always happened kind of in those areas that are wildlands or pristine areas, kind of separate from humans. Certainly not in landscapes like this that are completely dominated by humans and mostly consist of of skyscrapers and roads and streets bustling with people. But even in this city, even in this metropolis, the nation's largest metropolis, non-human life is everywhere. New York City is home to coyotes. It's home to rare plants. It's home to bats. There's even been species of amphibians and insects that were discovered, new to science, in New York City for the first time in just recent years. It also has incredible bird life. Now, it might be hard to picture, but New York City is an archipelago. And on the lost islands of New York Harbor, these small little patches throughout the harbor, there exists the largest wading bird population in the entire Northeast. Wading birds meaning herons and egrets. This is a view of the South Bronx. This is an island in the South Bronx. This island last year had 500 pairs of nesting birds nesting on it. Nothing else like this exists in the Northeast. From the New Jersey coast to Maine, there was nothing else like this. This is probably not what you were picturing when you were thinking of New York City. And these birds, they're only here because of conservation action. In the 1970s and the 1980s, the Hudson River and the New York Harbor was cleaned, and that allowed these important birds to return. And setting aside these lost, abandoned islands in New York Harbor allowed these sensitive nesting birds to nest in the shadow of the nation's largest metropolis. Conservation works. And this population, it's really important. Because of the size of it, the birds that are nesting in New York City, as they leave, the young leave New York City, they're supporting populations all along the coast. All along the coast, the birds are going there and boosting other populations. And all along the way, delighting people. Because when somebody sees a 4-foot-tall wading bird, you don't need to be a biologist to know that you're seeing something special. But it's not just nesting water birds. I'd like you to picture a singing songbird. In New York City, we have over 25 million birds migrate through this city every year. Most of them are songbirds. And they're passing through on this migration. They're encountering New York City as they fly along historic flyways that they have been flying for millennia, long before cities popped up in their path, introducing new risks and new challenges. And that's why it's so important that cities are thought of differently. Cities are thought of to be wildlife safe. For example, all cities along a flyway, along this kind of historic bird highway that connects birds between points north and south, all cities in that range can be made bird safe by simply making glass visible to birds. Putting small dots or patterns on the exterior surface of glass can save over 1 billion birds a year. And if we focus first on cities, we're going to have the biggest impact. And it's important because what we're doing in cities, it's not just about city wildlife, right? It's not thinking about city wildlife. This is about global biodiversity, global wildlife. And kind of an example of that is this bird, the red knot. So the red knot is a small reddish bird. It's about this big. And this bird migrates from the southern tip of South America all the way to the Arctic every year. And it times that multi-thousand-mile flight to land on New York City's beaches. The timing of that landing on New York City beaches is perfect with horseshoe crab mating on the beaches in New York City. Yes, horseshoe crabs mate in the thousands on New York City's beaches. And they've been doing so for millions of years. And when they do this, the eggs of these horseshoe crabs line the beaches, supporting red knots and many other species on their flight. Now, if you think about the global biodiversity conservations of what happens, for example, if these red knots arrive in spring and the horseshoe crabs aren't there. Local conservation makes global impact. It also is really good for us. People enjoy biodiversity. It's one of the reasons that when we feel stressed, we go outside for a walk. We like to go visit a park. It's one of the reasons that we have, all of us have this fond memory of some point in nature somewhere. And it goes beyond that. Academic studies have shown that if you have access to a biodiverse green space, you're healthier. Even further, whether or not you know birds, if you walk out into that green space and you hear more species of birds singing, you feel better. That's important. That action, going out into a green space, is important. It makes people feel better, but it also creates the next stewards of conservation for the next generation. And it's of critical importance to make sure that these green spaces are throughout cities so that everybody can enjoy them, become stewards of their own local parks, and green spaces. Because studies also show us that conservation works best when local communities take the lead. And beyond that, it's not just making us feel good. Think of those habitats, that habitat that I described earlier on the Javits Center. That habitat, sure, it's a wildlife habitat, but it also does so much more. That building, it cools the city, it cleans the air, it captures stormwater, it reduces noise, and it makes us feel good. And that is a win for cities. It's a win for local residents, and it's absolutely a win for global conservation. And that's why I view cities with hope. Because the vision of the future that I see is one where cities are covered by green space and wildlife safe features that can be enjoyed by everyone, improving quality of life for city residents, improving cities overall, making us feel better, and protecting global biodiversity. So I hope that next time somebody stands in front of you and asks you to envision the place where you think biodiversity conservation happens, I hope that maybe, just maybe, you'll picture a city. Thank you.